I built something in 2 days. And that's kind of when I realized, wow, there's something really crazy here, that even for a person who knows how to code, there's something so powerful, with these tools. And when I put the site out, and then I got like a lot of messages from people saying, wow, that's really impressive. How long did it take to build? And I was like, oh, actually, it wasn't that, it didn't take that long. And you'll be surprised at what you can do with some of these tools out there. And that's when I started realizing that, like, look, maybe I should build some smaller things and document my journey. And then it wasn't supposed to be a YouTube channel. I actually thought I'll write a blog post. And so while I was trying to write a blog post of how to create a job board, it took me hours and hours, and I very naively thought putting out videos would be easier, and having never put out a video before and never edited before. And then I was like, maybe it'll just be easier to record my screen. Like, I can't keep like writing this crazy blog post with screenshots, and then I was like, record my screen, and the process of recording was easier. But I think if I had talked to like a few YouTube people, they would have been like, oh my God, editing takes a long, long time to get right. So I would definitely not advocate like putting YouTube videos instead of blog posts, because the time is probably more, if not the same. But then that's how it was just born. And I was like, let me try and be consistent. So every 1 week or once in 2 weeks, let me put out a video of just making things. And so that's how the whole thing got started. Sorry, very long answer to your very small question.
I love your enthusiasm, and I love your sort of fundamental point of not reinventing the wheel. Even if you do code, you can spin some up with these tools a lot faster. You're not recycling what you've your sort of the basics.
Exactly.
I totally believe in that sort of stuff, templating
Exactly.
things. Yeah,
exactly. Totally. Hi, Jason.
Hey, how you doing?
Good. How are
Sorry,
you?
I'm late.
No problem at
No
all.
worries at all. Yeah, we've as I was saying, we've had some hitches my end, so we weren't able to let a few people in. But it looks like, yeah, I think it's okay. I said to Romy that we're recording anyway, so we can just share to people who weren't able to drop by. But I normally do like an official sort of introduction to the just for the purposes of the my YouTube when I send it out there. So if you don't mind, I'll just intro, and then we can get stuck in. Does that sound all right?
That sounds great. Let's go for it.
Awesome, cool. Welcome everyone to this 100 Days of No Code Expert AMA. Pleased to be with Romy Misra, and yeah, we're going to be hearing about her journey into no code, her learnings, what she's been up to, and hearing about what she's doing next. But I will sort of pass on to her to talk about her journey into no code and how that got started. I think she's already touched on it a little bit before we started recording, but it just for the purposes of the tape, it would be great to just
I didn't realize you were recording, Matt.
No worries.
All right.
No worries. Yeah.
I'll try and give a shorter version than this time. But I got started into no code earlier this year, and it'd probably be new for Jason. I got started into no code earlier this year. Actually, when COVID hit, I built out. I saw a lot of startups doing layoffs, including the one I'm at, and it was just really sad to see like people losing their jobs, and really talented people losing their jobs. And at the same time, I knew some of my friends who were at companies who were hiring. And so I was like, can I quickly put up a job board to just help people who are getting laid off, telling them about the job opportunities that are out there. I was like, it'll have two criteria. One is, it'll have to be a startup, because that's where most of my network is. And second, it has to be with people, with companies less than 500. So like not Googles and Facebooks, which are, always hiring. And so my background is actually, I do know how to code. I taught myself how to code 2 or 3 years ago. And I spent a whole year doing it and, learning React and Node and Angular and, building smaller things with code. So to be able to at least build prototypes, with code. And but I don't do it for a living. So for example, putting up a job board in code would probably take me a couple of weeks at least. And I was like, I just want to do this quickly. And I had started like hearing about these, no code tools out there. So I started looking into a few. There was one criteria which I wanted, which was, multiple filtering. And so, I want jobs to be filtered by location, and I wanted jobs to be filtered by type. So you could choose, say London and, engineer, for example. And I could not get the kind of multiple filtering with a lot of these, table to sites, sheet to sites kind of, tools which were out there. And so I settled on Webflow. And I was really surprised that it just took a couple of days to get a polished, fairly polished looking job board, out there. And I basically put it out on my LinkedIn, and I got so many messages, so many people sharing it, and people were like, wow, how did you do this so quickly? And I realized there is a huge power, like, with these tools, to be able to make things quickly, to solve problems quickly, and in some cases at scale as well. And so at that point, I was like, maybe I should just write a blog post about it. And I very naively, I started writing the blog post, and midway realized this is just going to take me days, like, putting screenshots and, explaining the whole process. So I was like, maybe I should just record my screen and, put up a video instead. That'll be the easiest. And naively, I thought, videos is much easier than blog posts. Probably completely not true. If I had talked to one YouTuber at that time, they would have completely told me, like, do not get into that route. It's a lot of work. So after a few days of editing and and just putting out all the kinks, I put on the first video, and I was like, this has been really fun. I actually enjoyed most of the process, and so I was like, how about I make it consistent and keep trying to do it, once in a week or once in 2 weeks, and share whatever I learned along the way. And so that's how the whole thing got started.
Amazing. So thanks for running through that again. But no, it's good to hear twice, because it is an interesting route into no code. And yeah, definitely I think mirrors a lot of sort of people's experiences as well. So no, thanks for sharing that again. But
it's good for me to hear anyway, Romy. Yeah, nice introduction.
Oh, thank you.
But yeah, I know we'd sort of discussed looking at your sort of hearing more about your learnings in no code. Yeah, it'd be great if you could share those with the group. That'd be amazing.
Yeah. So also please feel free to jump in with questions, because this is pretty informal. And I didn't come prepared with slides. I just wrote down whatever I've learned, myself, and so I thought it'd just be good to chat about it. But there are some observations I've seen, like just from someone being relatively new in the space. The first is understand why you are in no code for, and there are, I think, 2 very different camps. One is some people want to get really good at the tool. You may want to master Webflow in and out, and that's great. And the other camp is people who really want to solve a problem. So using Webflow to solve a problem, say a job board. What I find in no code so far is that most people, or almost all of it, are just focused on the tools. So people will be like, I built this using Webflow, MemberStack, Zapier, Airtable, and these long list of tools. And but people who really want to solve problems, a lot of them are not talking about the problem they're trying to solve. And that's something very very different compared to hey Dan,
hey.
very different compared to other, even startups. Like, you don't like hear the Airbnb founders saying, or even when they started talking about like, I built Airbnb with Ruby on Rails, MySQL, like no one talks like that, right? So I think like a real understanding of like, the tools are very, very important. But like, if you're solving a problem, forget about, you don't even need to talk about the tools. It doesn't matter. And actually, if you see the most successful people, like who are using no code to solve things in their life, and by success, I mean like who are making the most money or something, they don't even talk about the tools, and they don't even talk about the term no code. So some examples are like, Jack Butcher, he makes 100K a month with his and he has with his designs, and you can check out his Twitter, and he runs his entire site, his entire community on no code tools, traditionally no code tools. He never once talks about that. All he's talking about is the problem his designs are solving and what the value of learning design is. And that's one observation I found is like, it's really important to be very clear in what camp you're in. It's not a camp really, but like understand like why you are learning it. And so if you're learning it to get really, really great at the tool and want to be a Webflow expert, like Mackenzie or Sako, definitely share that. But if you're learning it to solve a problem, you actually probably don't even need to talk about the tools, right? And so there's been a very disproportionate amount of focus on tools, while I think ultimately for most people, it's just about solving problems, and your end user probably doesn't even care about the tools you use to accomplish the job. So that's been like one learning on just understanding the goals of no code. The second thing, very similar to this vein, is that I think once you get into it, or like even when I joined MakerPad, everything is just around tools. And the second related to that is that you are a lot of no code makers ask you about like how complicated it is, right? And sometimes I think it's really, really good to remember that you can start very simple and question yourself when you are adding different layers of complexity to a project. So for example, I'll take two very simple examples here. One is like, if you're starting a newsletter, ask yourself, why can't you do it with Substack? Like, why do you even need like a landing page and then maybe you need a Zapier to send something to your email? Why can't you just start with Substack? And that goes into like really understanding the limitations and of each tool. So like with Substack, you can't get a custom domain. So if you're very clear that actually I need a custom domain. I want a landing page for signups. And also I recognize that there are a lot of extremely successful people who are making a lifestyle business with Substack, but understand the limitations of every tool and know why you're choosing the tool for versus just diving into it. So I would really just encourage people to understand limitations and not make things complex just because it's fun to play with the tools, but really understand why you need that functionality. I mean, same with the landing page. Like sometimes you're like, I'll make my landing page with Webflow, and I'm like, why? Like, if you've never used Webflow has a significant learning curve, and it's totally okay and especially if you're not a designer and you don't come with if you don't have a background of understanding some CSS concepts like the box model. Webflow can be very frustrating to start with. And if you just want a landing page or a simple site, I was talking to a group of a friend who runs this agency for lawyers, who want websites, and they're using Squarespace for the sites, which I think is actually the best choice. Like, look at your skill set, and if that's the skill set you want to pick up for the problem, that's great. But just don't dive into tools because you hear is good. Like, really evaluate it for yourself versus hearsay. So yes, Webflow is amazing for customization, and it has really brought in an amazing lens into what we can customize, how easy it is. Their UI is one of the best I've seen. And I love Webflow, but for the right reasons. So understanding like really why you want to get into the tool, and the reasons you want to choose a tool is so important. And so you will, when you enter the no code community, you may find that sometimes more complicated stuff gets is encouraged, like stringing to the, and that's really fun when you want to play tools. But if you want to like solve a problem, really understanding that, oh wait, I may not need that. Another example I have here, and this is really simple, but Daniel Velasco, who has, and maybe some of you've heard of him. He wrote a PDF on how to create a Twitter audience and made $200,000. And he just did that off Gumroad. Like, you don't even, like, sometimes I'm like, if you want to sell something, why do you want to cite? Okay, and you want to cite why? Like, really understand why you want things. Because the hard part is sometimes not the tool, it's actually creating the thing. Like, it's actually creating the content. It's actually writing that newsletter versus the tool. So so I would just encourage you to, like, when you're approaching a tool, understand what it's good for, what it's not good for, what are the limitations, and really why you need it. I think that's less talked about versus just the tool itself. So it's really great to play around with tools, and that's fine. Like, I play around with tools all the time, but to actually pick it for a project requires investment, and investment of your time, most importantly. And so really understanding the limitations of that before you pick it up. And I think that's really, really important. So I think that's been my second biggest learning around tools in general. I can keep going, maybe with a couple of other learnings. I think the third thing which has really helped me is really understanding my learning style. Some people, and this in general has helped me with more things apart from no code, but I think, for example, I am motivated if I know, if you tell me like, go and learn Webflow, I don't have a lot of motivation. But if you tell me like, oh, let's learn Webflow so we can create this job board, I have a lot of motivation. So I think there are two basic styles of learning. One is like for understanding the skill itself to get better at it. And the other is like learning the skill to understand what impact that skill has, like for a project. And that's a more project style learning. So really understand like what camp you're on. And then if your goal is like you like solving projects, then give yourself a series of small projects and then dive into a tool. And I think it makes it a lot more exciting. And if you are better at like wanting to first understand the tool first, then start at Webflow University, like, go through the videos. And that's a very different kind of learning, but really understanding your learning style really helps, I think, when you're navigating this landscape. And depending on your learning style, just motivate yourself with the right, the right things. So if it's project-based, come up with some small projects that you want to learn, which may touch upon these tools. So yeah, and in general, understanding your learning style is, I think, very critical to getting better at these no-code tools. The last thing I would say is like the no-code community is one of the best communities I've been part of, look, when I tried to learn how to code, it was a very lonely journey. When I was coding by myself, yes, there are a lot of forums and a lot of other sources, but it was very, very different compared to the no code community. And the no code community is really, really is so supportive. It's so great. So I would say like, absolutely, I think like 100 Days of No Code, there's no code founders, and you'd be surprised like how giving like even some of the experts in each tool are. So if you are with no code tools, reach out to people who are the experts. And I think one of the best tips I got from community building has been from KP, was actually to provide like instead of thinking about community as what can I get from the other person when you're starting out, was to actually provide value in some way. So pick a couple of communities. So I'm a mom, and so I don't have a ton of time. So what I do is actually I pick my lanes, and I'm like, look, I like Twitter, and I like Makeup Ad, and I also like no code founders. So these are the 2 or 3 communities I'll hang out in. And so what I do is I pick those communities, and I don't think of like what I can get from that community every week, but I think of like where I can add value to that community. So say it is makeup ad, I'll look at someone's project and I'll be like, oh, this is great. Or if someone launched a product hunt, I'll be like, I'll support it. I'm not expecting anything back, but just being part of the community in supporting everyone, and so pick your communities, and pick your communities where you want to spend your time, and then automatically like you will see like you'll get connected to more and more people that way. And so I encourage you to like try that route. And there is actually like a site called No Code Mentors, made by this person called Quentin. And when I started, I used No Code Mentors to actually chat with I remember Sako, who was this amazing Webflow expert, and then there were 2 or 3 people I got connected to the site. There was Alex Boughton, who's really good with Webflow as well. And just talking with them just really helps me. So that site is specifically designed for people to connect with experts, and that is great. But otherwise, like my approach to community building is like really trying to support other people who are creating, because in general creating is hard. It's hard to put yourself out there. It's hard to like build something from scratch. So so support people, give input wherever it's valuable, and you will start building a bunch of people who are supportive. I think that finally the other community which I love is Wink, which is Women in No Code as well. And for any like woman who will like watch this webinar, it's an absolute must join. So yeah, find your niches, find your tribes. It doesn't have to be everything, but just a few people. Like let's just 1 to 3 groups, and just support people there. So that has really helped me in this journey. It's always like you'll always get stuck sometimes, and sometimes like no amount of troubleshooting or no amount of naps can help you figure out the problem. And sometimes just having like some good peers who are in it together, it just helps. I remember like for a recent project, I was stuck. Like Webflow is really hard to style videos, and I was stuck on it for a couple of days. Like I was trying many things, and finally I just sent a message to Sako, and he just responded with 1 line, and that solved it immediately. So just having this like investing in like people and supporting people just really helps. And honestly, like this community is really accessible, and people are amazing. All the people I've met have been amazing and really helpful. So definitely take advantage of that, if you're in no code. And then finally, honestly, this is just a small thing from my end, but like sharing what I learned has been really valuable for me. And I would highly encourage, you all to do the same. You'll be surprised that sometimes when you are building things, like you think, this is no big deal, I don't need to share it. But one of my most watched videos on my channel has been how to connect. It's not Webflow, but it's how to connect Card with Stripe. It's the simplest thing. And I did not think that, when I started out, that people would be interested in seeing this. So sometimes just talking to people who are outside tech, or, who are outside your universe. And that's most people. You'd be amazed, like, how many people it can, just sharing how it can be valuable for different people. So I would highly encourage you to share. Also very selfishly, like sharing what you're learning, what you learn really helps you clarify your thoughts as well. So that's been a big plus for me while sharing. I think one of my next videos is on how to use Notion for creating websites, and just going through all the pros and cons and some of the examples, and then talking to all the people who are doing really cool stuff with Notion for websites has been super helpful for me. So so it'll serve 2 purposes, and it's really great. Yeah, and so do not think that even if you're building the smallest thing, if you just put it out there in the world, you never know where it may take you and who may read it and who may learn from it. I sometimes run my video. One of my childhood friends, who's a producer in National Geographic, like I'll make her read. I'll talk about my videos, and I'll be surprised that, oh wait, she doesn't she doesn't understand some of the things which I take for granted, which is, amazing. So even just getting that perspective, like sharing it with your friends who are in different industry, you'll be like, wow, this may be useful to share. So I try and keep that as my audience when I am sharing my videos, versus is it going to help like people who are experts in no code? Maybe not, but like whatever I learn, I can probably still share. So that has really served me and has been really, really powerful for me. So yeah, I think those are have been like some of my learnings so far.
Amazing. Thanks so much for sharing all those. Yeah, everyone hit the nail on the head, and matched sort of my experience as well, and are just super valuable to share with people, especially starting out, because it's not said enough. Like it's not about the tools, it's about the people and the problems sort of using them. So yeah, some home truths there that you were putting out, which is good for others to hear. But yeah, anyone got any questions for Romy? Mark?
Yeah, thank you very much. I love your enthusiasm and your energy there. It's really encouraging, and it's interesting that you didn't mention some of the stuff you're putting out on your videos it's not original. Other people have covered that, but you're not concerned with that. You're just putting out what you've learned, and the objectives are rather than trying to find things that nobody else knows and explain that. You're saying like the simple thing about linking cards with Stripe or whatever, that that's probably been done hundreds of times, and there's probably plenty of videos out there if you did a search for it. But do you consider that your content is it's not original?
That's a really good point. So I think my take is original. By that I mean the way I explain it is original. I don't think I think some of my editing is original, but I don't think the actual content itself, like the content is on even card documentation, right? It's not original at all. But I am a big believer in, I say this to all of you, if you're sharing it, don't think that if something has been explained one way before, the world does not need your way. Does that make sense? So a lot of times we hear the same advice from people, and maybe the one person you heard it from, or one way the person told it, like hits home with you, and you're like, oh wow, that's who I'm going to follow, or that's I remember this like a couple of years ago. I was not into healthy smoothies, and I was like not into like a healthy breakfast. I was, and I had not made a lot of health choices. I was just eating whatever I wanted, and I wasn't thinking intentionally about my health. And there are a ton of health videos out there. There's a ton of health content. But I remember listening to this video where the person was talking about like how the right nutrients like helps you in the morning, the value, and something about the way she was explaining made sense, and it made me change things. So I would say that people undervalue or underestimate your take, someone's take of it, someone's style of explaining. People, and you see this all the time, like people are talking about startups, business problems, but something about the way they're talking about like motivation or starting a problem, starting a startup, will hit home to you and so you associate with people's take versus people's content. And I'm a very strong believer in that. So that's why I'm like, share your experience, because your experience is unique. The way you are going to talk about a problem is unique compared to anyone in the world. And so you have to bring your uniqueness, your personality into what you're trying to explain. And so that's what I focus on. But I definitely look at I also try and so I do a YouTube search before I start a video. Sometimes like I'm like, okay, I made this thing, I want to share it. What is the content out there? So for example, when I did the Webflow video, I was trying to create a landing page in Webflow. So I first looked at the content out there, and then I saw there was one thing missing. People don't talk about what you need to do before even designing. So, maybe even thinking of your content in boxes, like wireframing it on a piece of paper. There's very little content around that. So I was like, maybe let me start the video, instead of starting it right into Webflow and create a content, and let's start moving boxes, let me start the video of the thought process, how you even think of what you want to put on the screen, you know? So let me start the video from there. So I definitely try and look for gaps. And then even when creating the Webflow landing page, I was like, look, there are a lot of videos who are explaining actually Webflow way better than, you know, who know Webflow more than I do. But maybe let me show how you can do Webflow in, like, you know, how you can probably create a landing page in 30 minutes, how you can probably distill the concepts a little quicker, because the learning curve in Webflow is always many, many, many hours. So I was like, how about I try and bring a take there? So I do some research, but having said that, just seeing another video out there, and this applies for business as well, like seeing a competition out there, if you have a unique take and a unique solution on something, that should never deter you from putting something out there. That's what I strongly believe.
Yeah, I love it. I think that's, you know, it's refreshing, because you know, sometimes you think, well, you know, you come up with an idea and then you're disheartened because it's already been done, or you know, there's a saturation on, you know, what you perceive already, so it puts you off. But you're completely right, and yeah, it's just a refreshing approach. And I'm pleased that you didn't mention that when you were talking about your learning, that, you know, it wasn't a factor. You know, you're more interested in other things, that the value is elsewhere. So yeah, I think it's amazing. And yeah, I'm going to be looking at a few more of your videos. I do appreciate your time today.
Thank you. Yeah, I think same with the problem too. Like, you know, when you're talking about, say, for example, like recruiting, you know, one of the most done areas, right? And you're like, but if there's a problem which is still a pain point for you, it's still not solved well, you know? So there can be 100 takes of it. And I think that's kind of how Dropbox started, you know, because there was a lot of file sharing solutions out there, but the founder was like, it's still a pain point for me. So let me add my take of how to solve that. So that's how I connected. So, you know, for example, like if I see, like, you know, 20 videos and they're not solving the point for me, I'm like, I still think there's an opportunity. So if you still think there's an opportunity, definitely go for it. And I think, yeah, absolutely. And so it doesn't have to be a video, blog posts, whatever. I think your unique take is unique.
Well, yours certainly is. You've got boundless energy and a real great approach. So yeah, I think it's great. And we've said it in this group before that you know, we take for granted what we know, and it's not necessarily the same as what everybody else knows. I was with someone yesterday, and they weren't aware that you could use 2 fingers on your trackpad to scroll up and down a screen. Anybody in this room would do it instinctively, but you know, that is.
You do what, Mark?
Yeah.
Two?
Yeah. And you can't take it for granted that people know what you know. So
exactly. And you know what? One thing which really helps you clarify is knowing your audience. So, for example, I think like the people I make videos for are not the Webflow experts. They are not the Airtable experts. There are people like Aaron Corenblit. He makes amazing videos on Airtable, like you know, and he just focuses on Airtable. There's another one called Gareth. He just focuses on Airtable. So I think knowing that, like, really helps. So for example, I put out a video, I think 3 weeks ago on Reddit, and I got a lot of flack from Webflow experts saying, great, but, like, you know what, you didn't cover those details, or you didn't cover that. And it is really good to hear criticism, but then also know, like, you know, who. I was like, maybe that Webflow expert is not really who that video was for, so I'm okay with that, you know. So I take criticism, I take feedback, and I try to see, like, does this apply to the audience I'm trying to build for? And if it does, then I incorporate it. If it doesn't, I learn to take it with a grain of salt. But yeah, really, I think understanding your audience really, really helps that way too. So, you know, a lot of people don't start broad. A lot of people want to be very specialized, and so their tone is very specialized. They won't come and start with, here is Webflow, this is what it's for. They'll be like, oh yeah, these are the top 5 tricks in Webflow. This is how you can make boxes Probably talking about like overflow features and other things which people don't use. And so really knowing that really helps you clarify the content you're putting out as well.
I have a question. Well,
yes.
Firstly, just thank you for being so excellent. The question that I have is actually about your audience, which is, do you have an understanding of who that audience is, and has it changed since you started doing your projects and the videos, or are you refining it? Like, what's your process for your thing? Is it like, I'm going to just do what I do, and then whoever finds me, or are you being more intentional?
That's an amazing question. So everyone who starts creating something, either you're creating it for yourself, like things you would have found useful when you started, but I didn't have an audience, right? I had 0 people, so it's very hard to like build for know what the audience is saying. There's 0 feedback for the first month or so. And so what I did was I think the audience has to be a mixture of a couple of things. One is like, are you interested in putting out content for that audience? For example, like if you have to tell me like I have to make Airtable videos for the rest of my life, I probably wouldn't be that interested, right? I'd be like, I don't think I can do that because I love Airtable, but I'm not that passionate about it, right? So so I think there has to be a mix between your interests and what the audience wants. So that's that kind of mix where you have to put content out. The second thing is like, I then seek out people who I think are my audience, and that's what I would do. So I put a lot of, I think there's a lot of talk and people think it's all magic, like not magical, but it's organic. That's the new one, organically grows and, organically, but I identified communities. So there's an indie hackers no code community. There are subreddits for every single tool, like Webflow, Airtable, there's a no code subreddit. So I would show my work in all of those places, and sometimes it was hard. Sometimes the comments weren't great, but it really, really helped me understand the people I'm going after, like people I want to build for, and improve as well. Like some people like, your audio was terrible. Okay, let me get my audio better, stuff like that. So I would really intentionally find communities where these kind of people are out there. The no code founders groups is very general, and then put it out there and see how people are engaging with it. I mean, I think now I'm at a stage where, when I put out a video and there'll be like, probably 70 to 100 views immediately without me putting it out. But before that, I could probably tell you exactly who saw it because I was putting it out every single place. So here's what so to build an audience, is probably like a completely different, it's a very in-depth topic, but I put effort in, probably 90% effort in creating the video and 10% effort in actually putting it out to people who I think would matter. So a big part of who I want to reach is people who have never heard of no-code tools, who are like, in marketing and, who think making is in for them, who think making is hard. And so I send it to all my colleagues, the marketing team. I send it to all my childhood friends who have nothing to do with tech, some of them. So I really try to seek them out, and then get feedback. I remember like when I put on the first video, I was on a call with Sako, who's this Webflex, and he asked me, who's your audience? And I was like, I didn't know. I just had an idea of kind of where I wanted the videos to land, but I didn't really know that. And so I think for the first few pieces of content you put out, it's okay to not know because it takes a while to understand those things. But it has to be a mixture of what you like creating and what people want. And that ultimately becomes your audience. So I've got a lot of requests to do videos of things which I'm not super interested in creating. And so I steer away from them. And, I'm like, I'm not too sure about that. And so, yeah, it's still work in progress, but that has just been my learning so far.
Thank you very much. Thanks.
Yeah.
That was really good.
I've got a question from someone that couldn't make it today, but he's just sort of started the 100-day challenge, and he basically said, if you could talk to your past self in your first day hearing about no code, what would you do differently than how you attacked it beforehand? And then sort of off the back of that as well, it's like a sub question: what learning resources did you wish you knew about, do you wish you knew about at that time? Yeah, if you could share those as well, that'd be amazing.
Oh, so I think when I started, I wish I knew about the importance of like understanding the limitations of every tool. You know, like trying to study what the tool is good for a little bit. I'm not saying it should paralyze you and you're stuck in like this decision making mode forever, but like understand what every tool is good for. I had a tendency to dive into it. So I would evaluate a little bit first. So for example, I remember with this job, I started building a site with sheet to site, you know, but if I would have been clear that, look, I need custom filters in this, will sheet to site help me? And that answer would have been no in a much quicker time frame than actually like building something with it. And then even understanding like, look, with Webflow, or some of these no-code tools, like you will run into the limitations quickly. Like Webflow, even custom filters is not easy. I think that was the hardest part of the entire job board, was creating custom filters. And the other thing, I didn't want to spend hundreds and hundreds of dollars on a side project. So I was like, I don't want to use JetBoost, which is again $9 a month. So I wanted to do it without JetBoost. So I ended up using this obscure library called Mixmax, I believe. And it took me a long time to figure that out. So like I would say understanding the limitations of every tool before diving into it was something I wish I would have done differently. For learning resources, I would say, look for, this is a little unconventional, but I would say look for people who, apart from, of course, the documentation, some of their documentations, most sites are great, but look for people who are the leaders in that tool. So for example, like, you know, like Card, it could be Bubble, it could be Webflow. Like I followed like the 2 or 3 people on Twitter who are really good at it. So for Webflow, Mackenzie, he's a great YouTuber himself, by the way. He does amazing videos on Webflow. And now he has a site of his just dedicated to Webflow learning. So Mackenzie, Sarko, Alex, I followed all 3 of them. And so just, there was a human interaction component, which I wish I had also jumped on in earlier. And so learning from people directly is this very underutilized resource. And so try and map out those people. So it was in Airtable, it was Aaron, and he's so helpful. And so he's my go-to if I have like a tough Airtable question now, or if I have a new Airtable video I want to run by him, he's my go-to. For Webflow, there is Andrew Davison. You know, just so there are these few people, I would suggest just make a small map of them, just follow all of them, and try and learn from the people directly as well, apart from like, of course, the official resources. So that's just another learning resource, you know, which really helped me like understand things very quickly.
Amazing. Yeah, I'm sure he'd be happy with that answer when I pass it on. Yeah, that's really helpful. But it's a good point. Yeah, sort of those relationships you have with, or at least just on Twitter, just seeing them update and build in those tools every day on Twitter, as opposed to going through the official channels, can be more inspiring and interesting than reading boring documentation.
Yeah, definitely.
But yeah, has anyone got any other questions?
I've not got, my questions have been answered really, Romy, but yeah, I'm really grateful for, as everyone else said, for all your energy and everything else, and the points you've made have been really encouraging, especially about the, you know, putting your content out there. I'm really bad for thinking I need to do some content and then seeing someone else has done it and think, well, that's probably better than what I can do, so why would I bother? You know, you talk about Airtable and things, and I see Gareth.
Yes.
He does excellent stuff, and I think, well, I can't compete against that, so I'll just not bother at all. So it's encouraging to, you know, to remind myself really that there's lots of people that like to learn different ways, that might connect in a different way, that might not be at that level, or you explain something a little easier to them, you know, it clicks with them.
Right.
So
right.
I try and remind myself of that when I think I don't bother. So it's good to hear you say it. It's encouraging to make me think, okay, you're right. I need to do more.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, Gareth is an expert, and he talks about different things about Airtable. But like, say someone not starting out, you probably can have a unique perspective into what challenges you found in Airtable, right? So Gareth was talking about like, this is how you do it, right? But you may be like, you know, I didn't understand this. Or, you know, this was really confusing to me in Airtable, and this is how I figured it out. And that could be completely different than, you know, Gareth's take on Airtable. So definitely that should not, I don't think that should be a blocker in your way. Exactly. There's so many takes on one thing.
You're right. It's just you have to hear it a few more times, don't you, sometimes?
Exactly. And honestly, I think what all of you are doing with this challenge is so great. And just remembering that making is messy. I don't think you see people behind the scenes. A lot of times, you know, I will start making something for a video and it won't turn out the way, you know, it is. And, you know, it'll be like, I tried to build this, but it was not that great. It got stuck. And so that happens 50% of the time with everyone, you know. And so just knowing that it's a not linear process, it's not like 100 days, you will have to make something better every day, but it's just 100 days of being consistent at it, or like, you know, just showing up. And so I think just being a little less harsh on oneself, like, I just showed up, I tried to do something, it didn't work out. And half of my videos, half of the content is just drafts. It's like, I don't think that I went down this, explored this route, didn't work out, and that's okay. You know what? I found another angle, and that's what I went for. So I think we just have to keep reminding ourselves that making is messy, you know, and it's not linear. It's not like every day you're going to build a better site or something. You go down a route, doesn't work out, a lot of dead ends, but it's all about your progress, your learning, and just consistently showing up. And I think that's ultimately what matters versus having some amazing output to show every day or something like that.
Yeah, thank you. You're right.
Is there, before we wrap up, Romy, is there anything you'd like to share or say as some final words?
Not really. I think I covered everything. Just want to thank you, Max, for the opportunity. I love what you're doing. Love what you're doing with the community. I love your energy. Actually, it was really good to see you in person too, and just have a chance to do this. So thank you so much for inviting me. I mean, and just keep doing what you're doing. I'm really excited by all your progress, and just seeing all these people saying, I started the 100 Days of No Code challenges is very inspiring for me too. So keep doing what you're doing.
I appreciate it. Yeah, thanks so much for the kind words, and yeah, appreciate your time massively as well. So hopefully we have you on another point. But yeah, thanks guys for coming as well, and yeah, we'll push this out there, the video on Sunday with our newsletter subscribers, so they'll be able to see it. But thanks so much again, Romy, and yeah, catch you guys on Twitter and other places.
Thank you, everyone. Thanks for joining. Bye. Bye, Max.
Bye.